I left my boring husband for a man who made me feel alive. 6 months later, I found his journal and realized what I threw away. My ex-husband Daniel and I were married for 6 years. We met in our mid-20s through mutual friends, and everything about our relationship was easy. He was calm and steady and reliable. He worked as an accountant and came home at the same time every day. We ate dinner together every night and watched shows on the couch and went to bed at the same time. Our weekends were quiet, farmers markets and bookstores and cooking together. He would read while I scrolled on my phone, and sometimes we wouldn't talk for hours, but we were always in the same room. I used to find comfort in that. Around year 4, I started feeling like something was missing. My coworkers talked about their exciting weekends and spontaneous trips and passionate fights with their partners, and I had nothing to contribute. Daniel and I never fought. We never raised our voices. Everything was calm all the time, and I started to resent him for it. I convinced myself that calm meant he didn't care, that steady meant he wasn't passionate about me. I wanted fireworks and intensity and someone who would fight for me even if it meant fighting with me. Then I met Ryan at a work conference. He was the opposite of Daniel in every single way, loud and spontaneous and unpredictable. He made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. My heart would race when I saw his name on my phone. I started comparing everything Daniel did to him. Daniel's quiet. I love you in the morning became boring. Ryan's random text telling me he couldn't stop thinking about me became exciting. I started picking fights with Daniel just to see if he would react. He never did. He would just ask what was wrong and how he could help, and that made me even angrier. I wanted him to yell at me. I wanted proof that he cared enough to be jealous or angry or anything other than calm. When I told him I wanted a divorce, he didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just sat there for a long time and asked if there was anything he could do to change my mind. I said no. He asked if there was someone else. I lied and said no. He nodded and said okay. That was it. No fight, no begging. I took that as confirmation that he didn't care enough to try. The divorce was quick and painless. He only asked for a few things that belonged to his late mother. I moved in with Ryan 2 weeks after the papers were signed. For the first few months, it was everything I wanted. Passion and intensity and spontaneity. We stayed out until 3 in the morning and argued about stupid things and made up dramatically. I felt alive for the first time in years. Then the excitement became exhausting. The spontaneity meant I never knew if he would show up when he said he would. The intensity meant small disagreements became screaming matches that left me drained. I started missing the quiet dinners and predictable evenings, and the calm presence of someone who was just there. Last month, I went back to my old house to get some boxes from the garage. Daniel wasn't home, so I let myself in with the key I still had. The house looked the same, but emptier. I grabbed my things and was about to leave when I saw a notebook on the kitchen counter. I opened it even though I knew I shouldn't. It was a journal Daniel never once mentioned during our entire marriage. I flipped to a page from 3 years ago. He wrote about loving to watch me read on the couch even when I didn't notice. He wrote about memorizing how I take my coffee so he could make it every morning without asking. He wrote about being scared he wasn't exciting enough, and secretly planning a trip to Paris for our anniversary, because he wanted to see my face light up again. I flipped to the week I asked for divorce. He wrote that he knew something was wrong for months but didn't know how to fix it. He wrote that he thought about fighting for me but didn't want to trap me in a marriage that made me unhappy. He wrote that letting me go was the hardest thing he ever did, but he loved me enough to want me happy even if it wasn't with him. I sat on his kitchen floor and cried for 2 hours. I cried for the man who loved me quietly while I called him boring. I cried for the marriage I threw away chasing chaos disguised as passion. I finally understood Daniel did fight for me. He fought by waking up every single day and choosing to love me even when I made it impossible. I drove back to Ryan's apartment. He wasn't home. He didn't tell me where he went. I sat alone in the dark and realized the life I wanted was the one I already had. I texted Daniel that night and asked if we could talk. He responded 3 days later with one word: number. I sat in Ryan's apartment staring at my phone where Daniel's single word glowed on the screen. Number. Just that. 3 days of waiting for 2 letters that felt like a door slamming in my face. The rejection settled in my chest like something heavy and deserved. Ryan still wasn't home. I'd called twice and texted once asking where he went but got nothing back. 3 months ago, that would have felt exciting and mysterious, like he was too busy living life to check his phone. Now it just felt disrespectful. Now it felt like proof that I'd traded someone who always answered for someone who couldn't be bothered. I tried to sleep that night but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's handwriting describing how he memorized the way I take my coffee. 2 sugars and just enough cream to turn it light brown. He made it perfect every single morning for 6 years, and I never once thanked him, because I thought that's just what people did. Ryan doesn't even know if I prefer coffee or tea. I realized lying there in the dark that I've never actually told him because he's never asked. Not once in 6 months has he asked me what I like or how I take things or what matters to me. I got up and made myself coffee at 2 in the morning and put in 2 sugars and cream and cried into the cup. The next morning, I called in sick to work because I couldn't stop crying. My boss sounded annoyed, but I didn't care. I sat on the couch in the same clothes I'd worn yesterday and stared at my phone and waited for Ryan to come home. He finally showed up at noon looking tired and smelling like cigarettes and something else I couldn't place. He seemed annoyed that I was still there. He said he crashed at a friend's place after the bars closed around 3. I asked why he didn't text me, and he looked at me like I was being crazy. He said he didn't think it was a big deal and he doesn't have to check in like some kid with a curfew. I asked which friend, and he said I wouldn't know them and went to take a shower. I spent the day rereading Daniel's journal entries on my phone where I'd photographed every page. I know I shouldn't torture myself, but I couldn't stop. One entry from our 4th anniversary made me physically sick. He wrote about spending weeks planning a surprise weekend trip to the vineyard where we had our first date. He called around to find the exact table where we sat that day. He booked the same room at the bed and breakfast. He wrote about wanting to see my face light up again like it did when we first met. I never went on that trip. I asked for the divorce 2 weeks before our anniversary. He never mentioned any of it. He just let it all go and probably lost the deposits and never said a word. Ryan found me crying on the couch later that afternoon and asked what was wrong. I tried to explain about the journal and what I'd found and how I was realizing what I'd thrown away. He cut me off halfway through to complain about his own day. His boss was being difficult. His friend owed him money. The bartender last night was slow. I sat there listening to him talk and realized we've been together 6 months, and he's never once asked me a question about my marriage. He doesn't know how long Daniel and I were together. He doesn't know why it ended beyond what I told him at the start. He's never asked about my life before him because he doesn't actually care about anything that doesn't involve him directly. I waited until the next day and called Arno from work. He's the only friend who stayed neutral during the divorce and didn't take sides. Everyone else chose Daniel or chose me and stopped talking to whoever they didn't choose. Arno just said he loved us both and hoped we'd figure things out. I asked if he could meet me for coffee after his shift, and he said yes immediately. I felt grateful to have someone who would listen without judgment or telling me I told you so, even though I deserved both. Arno met me at the coffee shop near his office at 6. I told him the whole story about going back to the house and finding the journal and reading Daniel's words and realizing what I'd done. I showed him some of the entries I'd photographed and watched his face while he read them. He handed my phone back and said I'd been talking about Daniel for an hour, but hadn't mentioned Ryan once except to say where I was living. He asked me gently if I left my husband, or if I just ran away from myself. That question haunted me for days. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus at work. I kept thinking about what Arno said and realizing he was right. I blamed Daniel for my own restlessness and dissatisfaction with my life. He was never boring. I was bored with myself. I was unhappy with who I was and what I was doing. And instead of dealing with that, I made it his fault. It was easier to project everything onto someone who wouldn't fight back. Someone who would just ask what was wrong and how he could help. I punished him for being stable when the real problem was that I couldn't stand my own company. I tried to talk to Ryan about our relationship and where it was going. I waited until he was in a good mood and suggested we sit down and have a real conversation. He deflected immediately by saying we should go out and do something fun instead of having a heavy talk. I pressed the issue and said I really needed to discuss some things. He got annoyed and accused me of being too serious and killing the vibe we used to have. He said I'd changed since we moved in together and I wasn't fun anymore. I pointed out that wanting to communicate isn't being serious. It's being an adult. He rolled his eyes and left the apartment. I started noticing things about Ryan I'd been ignoring in the excitement of something new. How he interrupts me constantly when I'm talking. How he never remembers things I tell him about my day. How every plan we make revolves around what he wants to do and where he wants to go. The spontaneity I found so attractive was really just him refusing to consider anyone else's schedule or preferences. He doesn't plan things because planning would mean thinking about someone other than himself. He doesn't ask about my day because he genuinely doesn't care. The intensity I craved wasn't passion. It was just selfishness loud enough that I mistook it for something real. I throw myself into work because it's the only place where my brain stops replaying Daniel's journal entries on a loop. My desk becomes a fortress where I can hide behind spreadsheets and project timelines and pretend my personal life isn't falling apart. I arrive early and stay late and volunteer for extra assignments because being busy means not thinking. My boss Sarah stops by my desk one afternoon and asks if everything is okay because I've been unusually quiet during team meetings. I force a smile and tell her I'm fine, just focused on getting through the quarterly reports. She looks at me like she doesn't quite believe it, but she nods and says to let her know if I need anything. I can't tell her the truth because admitting what I did feels impossible. How do I explain that I destroyed a good marriage chasing something that turned out to be nothing? 2 weeks drag by and I can't stop thinking about Daniel. I tell myself not to call him again, but one morning I wake up and grab my phone before I can talk myself out of it. I dial his number and wait for it to ring, but it goes straight to voicemail without even connecting. I try again thinking maybe it's a network issue, but same result. The realization hits me hard and sudden. He blocked my number. He actually blocked me. My hands start shaking so badly I drop my phone on the floor. The finality of it makes my stomach turn, and I have to run to the bathroom where I dry heave over the toilet for 5 minutes. I can't catch my breath and my chest feels tight, and I realize this is what panic feels like. I splash cold water on my face and look at myself in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. I text Sarah that I'm sick and need to leave early. She responds immediately telling me to feel better and not to worry about the afternoon meeting. I drive home in a daze and crawl into bed even though it's only 2 in the afternoon. Ryan announces on Wednesday that he's going on a weekend trip with some friends from college. He doesn't ask if I want to come or if I have plans. He just tells me he's leaving Friday morning and will be back Sunday night. I remind him that I have a huge presentation Monday morning that I've been preparing for weeks, and I really can't just take off. He shrugs and says that's fine. He wasn't really inviting me anyway because it's a guy's thing. I ask where they're going and he's vague about it, just says somewhere upstate. Friday comes and he leaves without saying goodbye because I'm already at work. I spend the weekend preparing my presentation and trying not to feel pathetic about being alone. Saturday afternoon, I make the mistake of checking social media and see Ryan posted photos from a bar. He's with a group of people I've never seen before, and half of them are women. There's one woman in particular who shows up in every single shot with her arm around his shoulders or her hand on his back. The caption says something about old friends and good times. I stare at the photos until my vision blurs and I feel sick again. I close my laptop and walk to the bedroom where I keep a box of old photos shoved under the bed. I haven't looked at these since I moved in with Ryan because it hurt too much. I pull out the box and sit on the floor going through pictures from my marriage. There's one from our 3rd anniversary dinner where Daniel is smiling at me instead of at the camera. His expression is so peaceful and content that it makes my chest ache. I used to think that smile meant he was bored or checked out. Now I see it for what it was. He was happy. He was genuinely happy just being there with me. I find another photo from a farmer's market, both of us holding bags of vegetables and grinning like idiots. I remember that day. We spent 2 hours wandering through the stalls and then went home and cooked together, and it was perfect. But at the time, I convinced myself it was boring. I told myself that exciting couples didn't spend Saturday mornings buying produce. I flip through more photos and see the same thing over and over. Daniel's calm presence that I mistook for lack of passion. His steady reliability that I interpreted as him not caring enough to fight. I was so wrong about everything. Monday after work, I meet Arnaud at the coffee shop near his office. I've been texting him updates about the Ryan situation and the blocked number and everything falling apart. He listens while I explain about the weekend photos and how I spent 2 days alone looking at old pictures. He's quiet for a long time after I finish talking, and then he says something that catches me off guard. He suggests I should talk to a therapist because he's worried about how much I'm struggling, and he thinks I need professional help processing all of this. I want to be defensive, but he's right. I can't handle this on my own, and talking to friends isn't enough. I need someone objective who can help me understand why I made the choices I did. That night, I log into my insurance website and search for therapists in my area. I find one named Charlotte Dubois who specializes in relationship issues and life transitions. Her first available appointment is next Thursday at 6. I book it before I can change my mind. Ryan gets back Sunday night and acts like nothing happened. He walks in the door, drops his bag on the floor, and immediately starts talking about how great the trip was. He doesn't ask about my presentation or how my weekend went or if I'm okay. I wait until he finally pauses for breath, and then I ask about the woman in all his photos. He looks genuinely confused, like he can't understand why I would even bring it up. He says that's just Anna. She's been friends with the group since college, and I'm being weird about it. I point out that she had her hands all over him in every single picture, and he rolls his eyes. He says I'm being jealous and controlling, and he thought I was cooler than this. The word controlling makes me want to laugh because it's so backwards. I left Daniel partly because I wanted him to show jealousy, to care enough to be possessive sometimes. Now Ryan is accusing me of the exact thing I once craved. I don't have the energy to fight about it, so I just walk away. Thursday comes and I drive to Charlotte's office after work. The waiting room is small and quiet, with magazines nobody ever reads, and a white noise machine humming in the corner. Charlotte comes out to get me, and she's younger than I expected. Maybe early 40s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her office is comfortable in that deliberately calming way therapist offices always are. She asks me to tell her what brought me here, and I start talking about the journal. Once I start, I can't stop. I tell her everything. The divorce and Ryan and going back to the house and reading Daniel's words and realizing what I threw away. I tell her about the blocked number and the weekend photos and how I feel like I'm drowning. Saying it all out loud makes it real in a way that thinking about it didn't. When I'm done talking, I feel exhausted and raw. Charlotte doesn't offer easy answers or tell me what to do. Instead, she asks questions that make me think about things I've been avoiding. She asks why I believe Daniel didn't care when he showed up for me every single day. She asks what I was really looking for when I started the affair with Ryan. She asks if I've ever been comfortable with peace and stability, or if I always need chaos to feel alive. The questions follow me home and keep me up that night. I start recognizing patterns I never saw before. I've been chasing feelings instead of building something real. I confused emotional chaos for depth and mistook stability for shallowness. The intensity with Ryan felt like passion, but it was really just drama disguised as connection. Daniel's calm presence felt boring, but it was actually the foundation of something solid. Charlotte asks during our second session what I actually want from a relationship, and I realize with horror that I don't know anymore. I thought I wanted fireworks and spontaneity and someone who would fight with me. But now I see that what I really want is someone who shows up consistently and remembers how I take my coffee and plans surprises weeks in advance because they want to see me smile. I want what I already had and destroyed. Ryan stays out all night on a Tuesday without texting me once. I don't hear from him until he walks in Wednesday afternoon smelling like beer and someone else's perfume. I'm past the point of being hurt or angry. I just feel tired. I ask him calmly if he can please text me when he's going to stay out all night because I worry when I don't hear from him. He explodes immediately. He says I'm trying to change him into someone boring and predictable and he's not going to let me control his life. I hear myself defending basic communication as a relationship necessity, and I realize how low my standards have fallen. I'm literally asking for the bare minimum, for him to send a text letting me know he's alive and he's treating it like I'm demanding he check in every hour. This is our worst fight yet, and it ends with him storming out again. As I sit on the couch in the empty apartment and understand with complete clarity that this relationship is over. I'm just too afraid to admit it out loud yet. My phone rings Friday morning while I'm getting ready for work. I don't recognize the number, but I answer anyway. A woman's voice says my name and asks if I have time to talk. I ask who this is, and she says Eloise Morel, Daniel's older sister. My stomach drops so fast I have to sit down on the edge of the bed. Eloise and I were never close during the marriage, but we were always polite at family gatherings. I assume she's calling to yell at me for what I did to her brother, and I can't blame her. But her voice is calm, almost gentle. She asks if we can meet for coffee sometime this week. I'm too curious and too desperate for any connection to Daniel to say no. We agree to meet Saturday morning at a cafe downtown. I show up at the coffee shop 15 minutes early on Saturday morning because I'm too nervous to wait at home. The place is small and quiet with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture that probably costs more than it looks like it should. I order a tea I don't want just to have something to do with my hands and sit at a table near the back where I can see the door. Every time someone walks in, my stomach drops. But it's never her. I check my phone 3 times even though only 5 minutes have passed. I'm about to text and ask if she's still coming when the door opens and Eloise walks in. She looks exactly like I remember from family dinners, except maybe a little older around the eyes. She spots me right away and waves, then goes to the counter to order before coming over. She sits down across from me and smiles in a way that seems genuinely kind, and I immediately feel like I'm going to cry. She says Daniel told her about my text and his response, and she wanted to check on me because she knows finding that journal must have been devastating. The fact that she's being nice to me when she has every right to be angry makes something break open in my chest. I start crying right there in the middle of the coffee shop and I can't stop. She hands me napkins from the dispenser on the table and doesn't say anything while I try to pull myself together. Other people are looking at us, but Eloise doesn't seem to care. When I can finally talk, I apologize for falling apart, and she waves it off like it's nothing. She tells me Daniel is doing okay, that he's been seeing someone casually for a few months and is focusing on himself and his hobbies. The words hit me harder than they should because I knew he would move on eventually, but hearing it confirmed makes it real. She says he's taken up woodworking and goes hiking most weekends and has joined some kind of book club through the library. He sounds happy and stable and like he's building a life that has nothing to do with me. I should feel happy for him, but instead I feel like I'm losing him all over again. Like the door that was already closed just got locked from the inside. Eloise must see something on my face because she reaches across the table and puts her hand over mine. She says gently that Daniel loved me completely, that anyone who read that journal would know that, but he's not the same person he was during our marriage. She explains that losing me changed him in ways both good and difficult, that he's learned to set boundaries and protect himself, which is why he said no to talking. She's not trying to be cruel. She's just being honest, and somehow that makes it worse. I ask if she thinks he'll ever be willing to hear me apologize, and she's quiet for a long moment. Finally, she says honestly she doesn't know, but then she adds something that stops me cold. She says I shouldn't apologize to make myself feel better, that apologizing is supposed to be for the person you hurt, not for your own relief. She suggests I focus on understanding why I made the choices I did instead of seeking absolution from the person I hurt. The words settle over me like a weight because I realize she's right. I've been so desperate to tell Daniel I'm sorry because I want to feel less guilty, not because it would actually help him. We sit there for another hour and she tells me stories about Daniel as a kid, how he was always the calm one even when their parents were fighting, how he learned early to keep his feelings quiet. She says she used to worry he would end up with someone who took advantage of his steadiness, and when he married me she thought maybe she was wrong. Then she stops talking and just looks at me and I know what she's not saying. That conversation with Eloise shifts something in me because I realize I've been so focused on losing Daniel that I haven't actually examined the person I was when I was married to him. I go to see Charlotte 2 days later, and for the first time I'm not talking about Daniel, I'm talking about me. Charlotte helps me explore the deeper dissatisfaction I was feeling and why I blamed it on my marriage instead of addressing it directly. She asks what I was like before I met Daniel, and I realize I don't really know, because I've always defined myself through relationships. I jump from one person to the next without ever sitting still long enough to figure out who I am on my own. Charlotte writes something down and asks if I notice a pattern, and suddenly I do. I start recognizing patterns from before I even met Daniel. Things I've been doing my whole adult life without seeing them clearly. I've always gotten restless when things are going well, always created chaos when life feels too stable, always mistaken intensity for intimacy. The fights with Ryan that felt passionate at first were really just me recreating familiar dysfunction, because peace makes me uncomfortable. This isn't about Daniel at all. It's about me never learning to be at peace, never developing the ability to sit with contentment without sabotaging it. Charlotte asks why I think that is, and I don't have an answer yet, but at least now I'm asking the right questions. Ryan senses I'm pulling away emotionally, even though I haven't said anything. He responds by being extra attentive for about 3 days, texting me throughout the day and asking how I'm doing and suggesting we cook dinner together. For those 3 days, I almost convinced myself things could work, that maybe he's capable of being the partner I need. Then on the 4th day, he reverts to his usual self and disappears for an entire evening without explanation. The temporary effort just highlights how little genuine care exists between us, compared to what I had with Daniel. Daniel showed up consistently every single day for 6 years. Ryan can barely manage 3 days of basic consideration before getting bored and checking out. I find myself doing small things that Daniel used to do without even thinking about it. I make my coffee the exact way I like it, measuring out the cream and sugar precisely instead of just dumping things in. I start reading in the evening instead of scrolling my phone, actual books with pages that I have to turn. I go to the farmer's market on Saturday morning and buy fresh vegetables even though it would be easier to just go to the regular grocery store. These quiet rituals I once found boring now feel like coming home to myself, like I'm remembering who I was before I convinced myself I needed constant excitement to feel alive. Charlotte asks during our next session what I'm getting from my relationship with Ryan, and I have to really think about it. The honest answer is distraction from my own guilt and self-hatred. I'm staying because leaving would mean admitting I destroyed my marriage for nothing, but staying is destroying what's left of my self-respect. Every day I stay with someone who treats me like an option instead of a priority, I'm proving to myself that I don't deserve better. Charlotte doesn't tell me what to do, but she asks what I would tell a friend in my situation, and I know the answer immediately. Arno takes me out for my birthday the following week because he knows Ryan won't remember. We go to a nice restaurant and he orders a bottle of wine, and halfway through dinner he asks if I'm happy. Not just busy or distracted or entertained, but genuinely content. I open my mouth to say yes, but I can't because it would be a lie. I can't answer him because I can't remember the last time I felt actual happiness instead of just temporary excitement or relief from anxiety. Arno doesn't push, but he holds my hand across the table and says, I deserve to be happy, really happy, and staying in a relationship that makes me miserable isn't going to fix what I'm running from. I know he's right, but knowing something and being ready to act on it are two different things. I wake up on my birthday morning and Ryan's already gone. No note on the counter, no text message, nothing to show he remembered what day it is. I mentioned it at least 3 times this week. Casual comments about turning another year older, but he just nodded and kept scrolling through his phone. I make myself coffee and sit at the kitchen table waiting for something. A text or a call or him to walk through the door with flowers, but my phone stays silent. By noon, I'm angry at myself for expecting anything different. Daniel used to start planning my birthday weeks in advance, dropping hints about surprises and making sure the day felt special without me having to ask for it. Ryan comes home around 3 in the afternoon and I ask if he knows what today is. He looks confused for a second, then shrugs and says he forgot. When I tell him I'm hurt that he didn't remember my birthday even though I mentioned it multiple times, he gets defensive and says birthdays aren't a big deal, and I'm being materialistic for expecting him to celebrate. The words hit me wrong because it's not about gifts or money. It's about him caring enough to remember something important to me. I go to the bedroom and close the door because I don't want to fight about this. I don't want to have to explain why basic consideration matters. My therapy session with Charlotte the next week feels different because I'm finally ready to be honest. She asks me the same question she's been asking for weeks in different ways. What advice would I give a friend in my situation? I open my mouth to deflect like I usually do, but instead I hear myself say, I'd tell her to leave immediately. I'd tell her she deserves basic respect and consideration, and that someone who forgets her birthday after she mentions it multiple times doesn't care about her. Charlotte waits quietly while I process what I just said. I realize I've been unable to apply that same wisdom to myself, because leaving Ryan means admitting I destroyed my marriage for nothing. It means facing the fact that I traded a man who loved me completely for someone who can't remember my birthday. The clarity hurts worse than the confusion did. Charlotte asks what's stopping me from taking my own advice, and I don't have a good answer. Just fear and guilt and shame that I let things get this bad. That night, I tell Ryan we need to talk seriously about our relationship. He's on the couch playing video games, and he doesn't pause when I sit down. I wait until he dies in whatever game he's playing, and then I say, we can't keep going like this. He immediately gets defensive and says I've changed, that I've become negative and exhausting. I feel anger rising in my chest because I've barely asked him for anything. I point out that asking for basic communication and respect isn't negativity, that wanting my boyfriend to remember my birthday isn't being demanding. He puts down the controller and looks at me like I'm being unreasonable. He says maybe we want different things, and there's this challenge in his voice like he expects me to back down and apologize for bringing it up. For the first time, I agree with him completely. I say yes, we do want different things, and I'm done pretending that excitement and chaos are substitutes for actual partnership. I tell him I need someone who shows up consistently, who remembers important things, who treats me like a priority instead of an option. He seems shocked that I'm the one ending it. His face goes blank for a second, and then he asks if I'm serious. I tell him I've never been more serious about anything. He expected me to keep chasing him forever, to keep accepting the bare minimum while he did whatever he wanted. The look on his face when he realizes I'm actually leaving is almost satisfying, but mostly I just feel tired and sad that it took me this long. Ryan moves out within a week since the apartment was always more mine than his. He doesn't have much stuff, just clothes and his gaming equipment and some kitchen things he brought when we moved in together. I help him pack because sitting in silence while he does it alone feels worse somehow. He keeps making comments about how I'm going to regret this, how I'll realize I made a mistake and come back. I don't respond because there's no point arguing about it. When he carries the last box to his car, I feel this huge wave of relief wash over me. The apartment feels bigger and quieter without his energy filling up the space. Being alone is scary, but it's better than being with someone who makes me feel lonely. I lock the door behind him and sit on the couch in the silence and just breathe for the first time in months. I spend the first week after the breakup not trying to fix anything or jump into something new. I don't download dating apps or go out with friends or distract myself with work projects. I just sit with my own company and learn to be okay with quiet. The silence that used to terrify me now feels like space to finally think clearly. I wake up and make my coffee exactly how I like it. I read books in the evening instead of watching TV. I go to bed when I'm tired instead of staying up because someone else wants to. The small routines feel good in a way I forgot was possible. I'm not happy yet, but I'm not drowning either, and that feels like progress. Arno helps me move to a smaller apartment that I can afford on my own. The place I shared with Ryan was always too expensive for one person, and I don't want to stay somewhere that reminds me of my mistakes. The new apartment is smaller, but it has good light and it's in a quieter neighborhood. Arno carries boxes up 3 flights of stairs without complaining and helps me assemble furniture from the store. I pick out everything slowly and intentionally instead of just filling space with whatever's convenient. A blue couch because I like blue. A small dining table because I might want to have people over someday. Plants for the windowsill because taking care of something living feels important right now. The fresh start feels symbolic of rebuilding my life without running away from myself. Charlotte and I work on identifying my triggers for restlessness in our sessions. She helps me see the pattern of how I get uncomfortable when things are calm and stable, how I create problems when there aren't any real ones to solve. We develop healthier ways to handle dissatisfaction than blowing up my entire life. I'm learning that boredom is sometimes just peace, that my brain got trained to mistake drama for excitement and calm for apathy. When I feel restless now, I go for a run or call Arno or work on a puzzle instead of picking fights or making destructive choices. It's hard work, and I mess up sometimes, but I'm trying. Charlotte says that stability isn't the same as stagnation, and I'm starting to believe her. I write a letter to Daniel that I don't intend to send. Charlotte suggested it as a way to process everything I want to say without expecting anything from him. I sit down one night with a notebook and start writing, and I can't stop. The letter becomes dozens of pages of apology and understanding and grief for what I destroyed. I write about reading his journal and finally seeing how much he loved me. I write about all the ways I took him for granted and mistook his steadiness for indifference. I write about Ryan and how I thought chaos was passion until it nearly broke me. I write about learning to sit with quiet and realizing that Daniel was right all along about what matters. When I finish writing, my hand is cramping and my eyes are swollen from crying, but I feel lighter somehow. I fold up the pages and put them in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll send it or maybe I won't, but writing it helped me understand what I lost. 2 months after finding the journal, I see Daniel at the grocery store. I'm in the produce section trying to remember if I need onions when I look up, and he's standing near the tomatoes with a woman. She's pretty and laughing at something he said, and he looks happy and relaxed in a way I haven't seen in years. My stomach drops because I know this must be the person Eloise mentioned he's been seeing. I freeze with my hand on a bag of carrots and just watch them for a second. He picks up a tomato and shows it to her, and she nods and he puts it in their cart. It's such a small, normal thing, but it hurts to see him doing it with someone else. Then he sees me. His expression closes off immediately, and the easy smile disappears. We make eye contact across the produce section, and I can see him deciding what to do. He nods politely, just this small acknowledgement that I exist, and then turns away and keeps shopping. The woman doesn't seem to notice anything happened. I stand there holding my carrots while they walk toward the checkout, and I know I just saw my future. A life where Daniel is happy without me, and I have to learn to be okay with that. I drive home with tears running down my face and my hands shaking on the wheel. The image of Daniel looking happy with someone else keeps playing in my head over and over. I pull into my parking spot and just sit there crying for 20 minutes because seeing him move on makes everything feel so final. Part of me knew he would eventually, but watching it happen in real life is different from imagining it. When I finally go inside my apartment, I feel empty but also weirdly calm, like something clicked into place. I can't have him back, and I need to accept that instead of torturing myself with what-ifs. The grief is still there, but so is something else. This quiet understanding that his happiness doesn't erase what we had, even if I destroyed it. The next Saturday, I see a flyer at the coffee shop about volunteers needed at a community garden, and I take a photo of it on my phone. I need to do something with my weekends besides sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I show up the following week, and a woman with dirt under her fingernails hands me gloves and shows me how to prepare soil for planting. The work is slow and repetitive, turning earth and pulling weeds and watering seedlings that won't grow for weeks. I find myself thinking about Daniel while I work, how he used to tend the herbs on our kitchen windowsill with the same patient care. Growing things takes time and attention and consistency, all the things I used to dismiss as boring. I go back every weekend and my hands get calloused and my back aches, but watching tiny green shoots push through soil feels like proof that slow growth still counts as progress. Charlotte asks me during our next session if I've forgiven myself yet for what happened with Daniel. I sit there for a long time trying to figure out how to answer, because I'm not sure forgiveness is even the right word for what I did. Some mistakes feel too big to just forgive yourself and move on like nothing happened. I tell her I don't know if I should forgive myself, that maybe I need to carry this for a while longer. She leans forward and says something that surprises me, that understanding why I made those choices and learning from them matters more than beating myself up forever or letting myself off easy. She says guilt that leads to growth is useful, but guilt that just makes me hate myself helps nobody. I'm not sure I believe her yet, but I write it down in my journal to think about later. Heloise texts me out of nowhere one afternoon asking how I'm doing. I stare at the message for 10 minutes before responding because I still can't believe Daniel's sister wants anything to do with me. We text back and forth a few times and she tells me she knows I'm struggling with guilt about everything. She says something that makes me cry in the middle of the grocery store, that holding on to guilt forever doesn't honor what Daniel and I had together. She tells me the best apology isn't words, it's becoming someone who wouldn't make the same mistakes again. I thank her and tell her I don't deserve her kindness, but she just sends back a heart emoji. Having any connection to Daniel's family feels like more grace than I earned, but I'm trying to accept it instead of pushing it away. I look at myself in the mirror one morning while getting ready for work and realize I'm different from I was 6 months ago when I left Daniel. My face looks the same, but something behind my eyes has changed. I'm not the person who thought excitement mattered more than stability anymore, but I'm also not yet the person I want to become. Changing patterns I've had my whole life is hard and uncomfortable, and some days I want to quit. I catch myself getting restless when things are calm, and I have to actively work on sitting with that feeling instead of creating chaos. Charlotte says growth isn't linear and I'll mess up sometimes, but what matters is that I keep trying. For the first time in my life, I'm committed to actually doing the work, instead of running away when it gets difficult. 3 months after finding Daniel's journal, I open my laptop and write him an email. I don't ask to meet or talk or get back together. I just tell him I understand now what I threw away, and I'm genuinely happy he's moving forward with his life. I write that I hope the woman I saw him with appreciates him the way I should have. I apologize for the hurt I caused without making excuses or asking him to forgive me. The whole email is maybe 6 sentences long. I read it 20 times before hitting send, and then I close my laptop and go for a walk. I don't expect a response, and when days pass without one, I'm not surprised. Sending it wasn't about getting something back. It was about being honest for once, instead of hiding behind excuses. My boss calls me into her office the following week, and I'm scared I'm in trouble, but instead she tells me they're promoting me. The new position has more responsibility and better pay, and involves managing a small team. I'm surprised by how excited I feel about the challenge instead of anxious. The restlessness I used to feel at work hasn't disappeared completely, but now I channel it into learning new skills and taking on harder projects. I used to think being satisfied with my job meant I was boring, but now I understand that finding meaning in work is actually valuable. I thank my boss and go back to my desk feeling proud of myself for the first time in months. Arno invites me to his book club the next Thursday, and I almost say no because it sounds like exactly the kind of thing I used to dismiss as boring. But I remember Daniel loved book clubs and quiet conversations about ideas, and I never gave those things a real chance. I show up at Arno's apartment where 6 people sit around talking about a novel I haven't read. They're nice about catching me up, and the conversation is smart and deep without anyone trying to show off or dominate. These people have real connections with each other built on shared interests and genuine care, not drama or intensity. I leave feeling like I actually enjoyed myself instead of just killing time. I go back the following month and the month after that, slowly building friendships based on the kind of quiet compatibility I used to think was worthless. I'm getting coffee one Saturday when I see the couple who introduced me and Daniel sitting at a corner table. They notice me at the same time and their faces get awkward and uncomfortable. I walk over before I can talk myself out of it and tell them honestly that I messed up my marriage and I'm working on being better. They relax a little and invite me to sit down, and we end up talking for an hour. They mention Daniel seems really happy lately and is doing well at work, and I tell them I'm genuinely glad to hear it. They seem surprised that I mean it, but I do. I want him to be happy, even if it's not with me. When we say goodbye, they hug me and tell me to take care of myself, and it feels like maybe I didn't burn every bridge after all. Charlotte and I talk about my patterns in relationships during our next session, and she helps me see something I've been avoiding. I was searching for outside validation and excitement because I didn't have a strong sense of who I was as a person. I used relationships to define me instead of building my own identity first. With Daniel, I was the wife of a steady, reliable man, and I resented him for it. With Ryan, I was the girlfriend of an exciting, unpredictable man, and I exhausted myself trying to keep up. Neither relationship was about actually knowing myself or what I wanted. Charlotte says the work now is developing that foundation I never had, Figuring out who I am when I'm alone before I try to be part of someone else's life. I'm scared because I'm 32 and just now learning things I should have figured out in my 20s, but she reminds me that starting late is better than never starting at all. I sign up for a pottery class at the community center the following week because I've always wanted to try it. Daniel used to say it was impractical when I mentioned it during our marriage, and Ryan would have laughed and called it boring old lady stuff. The class meets Thursday evenings in a small studio that smells like wet clay and dust. The teacher shows us how to center the clay on the wheel, and my first attempts are disasters. The clay wobbles and collapses and I have to start over again and again. But there's something calming about the repetition, about learning to apply just the right amount of pressure at just the right time. By the third class, I managed to make a lopsided bowl that doesn't fall apart. I take it home and put it on my kitchen counter even though it's ugly and uneven. Creating something with my own hands through patience and practice feels like a metaphor for everything I'm trying to do with my life. I go back every week and slowly get better at centering the clay and pulling up the walls without them collapsing. 4 months after finding the journal, I meet Arno for dinner at a restaurant downtown. I park on the street and walk toward the entrance when I see Daniel's car in the lot. I stop walking and just stand there on the sidewalk staring at his old sedan with the dent in the back bumper from when I backed into a mailbox 3 years ago. He's inside that restaurant right now having dinner with someone, probably the woman from the grocery store. My first instinct is to go inside and manufacture some reason to talk to him, to insert myself into his evening and his life. But I don't. I turn around and text Arno that I need to reschedule, and I get back in my car and drive home. Sitting alone in my apartment, I feel this wave of acceptance that Daniel has a whole life now that doesn't include me and never will again. It hurts, but it's also okay somehow. He deserves to have dinner with someone who appreciates him without his ex-wife showing up and making it weird. I tell Charlotte about seeing Daniel's car at my next session, and she asks what I did. When I explain that I left without going in, she leans back in her chair and smiles a little. She points out that a few months ago, I would have gone inside and found some excuse to talk to him, that I would have convinced myself I had a right to know who he was with and what he was doing. But now I'm learning that love sometimes means leaving people alone to be happy without you. The words hit hard because they're true. I spent so long thinking love meant intensity and drama and fighting for someone, but real love is also knowing when to step back and let someone move on. Daniel choosing not to respond to my messages is him protecting himself and his healing, and the most loving thing I can do is respect that boundary, even though it's painful. Heloise texts me the next week asking if I want to get coffee, and I say yes. We meet at the same place as before, and she tells me Daniel knows she's been in contact with me. He's okay with it, she says. He doesn't hate me, but he's not ready for direct contact, and he might never be. I nod and stir my coffee and tell her I understand. Part of me had been hoping she would say he was softening or that maybe eventually he'd be willing to talk, but hearing the truth is actually better than holding on to false hope. I thank her for being kind enough to keep me updated when she has no reason to care about my feelings. She reaches across the table and squeezes my hand, and says she's seen how much I'm working on myself, and she respects that. Before we leave, I ask Heloise if she thinks Daniel read my email. She's quiet for a moment and then says yes, he read it, but he chose not to respond because answering would open a door he's worked hard to close. She reminds me that accepting his boundaries is the most loving thing I can do now, even though it hurts. I want to ask more questions, but I don't, because that would be using her as a way to stay connected to Daniel, and that's not fair to either of them. We hug goodbye and I drive home feeling sad, but also strangely at peace. I'm learning to sit with the grief of losing someone without trying to fix it or make it better or force resolution. The holidays approach and I spend them with my own family, instead of trying to insert myself into Daniel's life through Heloise or mutual friends. My parents live 2 hours away and I drive there for Thanksgiving. My mom notices right away that I seem different. She says I'm more present, more grounded, less distracted by my phone or whatever drama was always happening in my life. We cook together and talk about real things instead of surface-level small talk. My dad asks how I'm doing, and I give him an honest answer instead of a fake cheerful one. On my last day there, my mom hugs me in the kitchen and says she's proud of the work I'm doing on myself. I cry a little because I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. I write in a journal now, something I never did before. Every night before bed, I sit down and write honestly about my feelings and patterns and the things I'm learning in therapy. Some entries are about Daniel and the marriage I destroyed. Others are about Ryan and how I confused chaos with connection. More and more lately, they're about me and who I'm trying to become. Reading back through entries from even a month ago shows me how far I've come. I used to write the same things over and over, circling the same thoughts without any real insight. Now I can see patterns emerging and catch myself before I fall into old habits. The journal is evidence that I'm changing, even when it doesn't feel like it. Arno asks me over drinks one evening if I'm ready to date again. I think about it for a long time before answering. The truth is, I'm not ready. Not yet. I need more time being comfortable alone before I risk falling into old patterns with someone new. For the first time in my adult life, I'm choosing to be single intentionally, rather than treating it as a gap between relationships. Every relationship I've ever had was about filling some emptiness inside me, about defining myself through someone else's love or attention. I need to figure out who I am on my own before I try to be part of someone else's life. Arno nods and says that's probably the healthiest thing I've ever said about relationships. I see on social media that Daniel got engaged to the woman I saw him with at the grocery store. A mutual friend shares the announcement and suddenly it's right there on my screen. Daniel smiling bigger than I've seen in years, his arm around a woman who looks at him like he hung the moon. The news hits harder than I expected, even though I knew he'd moved on. I let myself grieve for a full day, crying on my couch and looking at old photos and feeling the weight of everything I threw away. But then I get up and wash my face and send Daniel a message congratulating him. I tell him genuinely that I wish him happiness because he deserves everything I couldn't give him. I don't expect a response and I don't get one, but sending it feels like the right thing to do. Charlotte asks at our next session how I'm feeling about Daniel's engagement. I'm able to say honestly that I'm sad for what I lost, but happy he found someone who appreciates him. The ability to hold both feelings at once feels like real emotional maturity, instead of the black and white thinking I used to do. Before I would have been either completely devastated or pretending I didn't care at all. Now I can be sad for myself while also being genuinely glad that Daniel is happy. Charlotte says that's growth, that being able to hold complexity and contradiction is a sign of developing emotional intelligence. I wake up the morning after seeing the engagement announcement to a text from Heloise. Her message says she knows the news must be hard for me even though I'm doing better, and she wants me to know she's seen real change in me over these past months. She writes that she's proud of the work I'm doing, and she's rooting for me to find my own happiness. I sit on my bed holding my phone and cry, but this time the tears feel different. Less about what I lost and more about being seen by someone who has every reason to hate me. Her kindness feels like more than I deserve, but I'm trying to learn how to accept grace when it's offered, instead of pushing it away because I think I don't deserve it. I text her back thanking her for everything she's done for me and telling her I'm genuinely happy for Daniel. I mean it when I type the words, which feels like proof that I'm actually changing instead of just saying I am. The weeks pass and I settle deeper into my new life, the one I'm building on my own without using another person as a foundation. My apartment stays clean because I want it that way, not because someone else expects it. I cook meals for myself and actually enjoy the process instead of rushing through it. I read books in the evening and don't feel guilty about the quiet. The farmer's market on Saturday mornings becomes my routine again, and I realize I never actually hated these things. I just hated myself and blamed it on my circumstances. I meet Arno for coffee every Tuesday and we talk about real things, not just surface-level complaints or gossip. He introduces me to his sister and we become friends, and I'm building a social circle based on actual connection, instead of just filling time between relationships. Some days I still wake up and feel the weight of everything I threw away pressing down on my chest. I let myself feel it instead of running from it or trying to fix it with someone new. I write in my journal about missing Daniel and the life we had, but I also write about understanding why I couldn't appreciate it then, and how I'm different now. The grief doesn't go away, but it becomes something I can carry instead of something that carries me. I sit down one evening and write Daniel a final letter, the one I actually plan to send this time. I tell him I saw his engagement announcement and I'm truly happy for him, not in a bitter or sarcastic way, but with genuine warmth for someone who deserves every good thing. I thank him for the 6 years we spent together, and for loving me as completely as he did even when I made it nearly impossible. I apologize for the pain I caused without making excuses or trying to explain away my choices. I don't ask him to forgive me or to respond or to give me anything at all. I just want him to know that I finally understand what I had and what I destroyed, and I'm grateful he found someone who can appreciate him the way he deserves. I read it over 3 times to make sure I'm not asking for anything disguised as giving closure. Then I send it before I can talk myself out of it. 2 weeks go by without a response and I tell myself that's okay, that I sent the letter for him, not for me. Then one morning I wake up to an email from Daniel. It's short, just a few lines, but every word feels carefully chosen. He writes that he appreciates what I said, and he's glad I'm doing better. He says he hopes I find the peace and happiness I was searching for, and he means that genuinely. He doesn't say he forgives me, and he doesn't say we can be friends, and he doesn't open a door to anything more than this single exchange. It's not the reconciliation some part of me still secretly hoped for, and it's not the complete absolution that would make me feel better about myself, but it's closure given with kindness, and it's grace from someone I hurt deeply, and I'm learning that sometimes that's enough. I can move forward now carrying the hard lessons I've learned and the self-awareness I've fought to build, and I can hope that the person I'm becoming is someone who won't make the same mistakes again. The story of my marriage is over, and I can't change how it ended, but the story of who I am is still being written, and for the first time, I'm the one holding the pen. I gave my husband permission to F another woman. My husband Jay waited until we were watching TV on a random night to destroy our marriage. I want to sleep with other women, he said, and he didn't even pause the show when he said it. I turned to look at him thinking he was joking. He wasn't. His face was completely serious. I love you and I want to stay married to you, he continued. But I also want the freedom to be with other women sometimes. I think I deserve that. I felt something snap inside my chest, but it wasn't sadness. It was something colder. Something that told me this marriage died the second those words left his mouth. You want permission to cheat, I said slowly. It's not cheating if you say yes. He smiled at me. He really thought he was being reasonable by having this mature conversation with me instead of sneaking around. Other couples do this all the time, he added. We could do it too, if you're open-minded. I stared at him for a long time, trying to figure out how this was the same man I'd given 5 years of my life to. I'm open-minded, I said. His whole face lit up and he kissed me on the forehead. You're the coolest wife ever. I mean that. Thank you. I smiled at him and held his hand and let him think he'd won. But I was already planning his defeat. I started making calls that night looking for someone who could destroy a man from the inside out. I needed beautiful, crazy, and willing to ruin his life. Jay thought he married a pushover who would let him have his fun while she sat at home waiting. He had no idea he married someone who would make him regret ever opening his mouth. I'll update you guys after my plans. Something tells me this is about to get interesting. That night, I lay in bed next to Jay while he snored peacefully. He had no trouble sleeping. Why would he? He just got permission from his wife to sleep with other women. His life was perfect. I stared at the ceiling for hours trying to figure out my next move. Divorce was obvious. I could file tomorrow and take half of everything and be done with him, but that didn't feel like enough. He would move on, find some other woman to charm, tell his friends his ex-wife was crazy and controlling and that's why he needed freedom. He would learn nothing. He would suffer nothing. And I would just be another bitter ex-wife starting over while he lived his best life. No. I needed him to lose more than a marriage. I needed him to lose his sanity, his peace, his sense of safety. I needed him to experience what it felt like to be trapped with someone who made his life miserable. And then I realized something. Jay wanted other women. So I would give him one. The wrong one. The kind of woman who seems perfect at first, and then slowly reveals herself to be an absolute nightmare. The kind of woman who doesn't let go. Who shows up everywhere. Who makes a man wish he had never spoken to her in the first place. I smiled in the dark for the first time since he opened his mouth. Jay wanted to play games. Fine. I would show him how games are really played. The next morning I called my friend Dana. Dana knew everyone. She was the kind of person who collected people and always had someone for whatever you needed. A good contractor. A cheap lawyer. A girl who could get you into any club in the city. I told her I needed someone specific. What kind of specific? She asked. Beautiful, I said. The kind of beautiful that makes men stupid. And a little bit crazy. The kind of crazy that doesn't show up right away, but once it does, you can't escape it. Dana was quiet for a second. What exactly are you planning? My husband wants to sleep with other women. I'm going to find him one he'll never forget. She laughed. Oh, I have some ideas. Let me make some calls. 2 days later, Dana sent me a list of 5 names. Women she knew who fit the profile. Women who had been burned by men before and would love the chance to return the favor. I set up interviews at a coffee shop across town where nobody would recognize me. I told each of them to show up at different times. I wasn't sure what I was looking for exactly, but I figured I would know it when I saw it. The first woman was pretty, but too nervous. She kept apologizing for things that didn't need apologies. She would crack under pressure. The second woman was angry. Too angry. She started ranting about her ex before I even finished explaining what I needed. She would blow the whole thing up before Jay even got hooked. The third woman was too nice. She said she wasn't sure she could actually hurt someone even if they deserved it. I thanked her for her time and crossed her off the list. The fourth woman didn't show up at all. I was starting to think this plan was stupid, that I should just file for divorce and move on with my life. And then the fifth woman walked in. She was wearing a simple black dress and heels that clicked on the floor with every step. Every man in that coffee shop turned to look at her. She didn't notice them. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She sat down across from me and smiled. You must be Viola, she said. I'm Natalie. I knew within 30 seconds that I had found exactly what I was looking for. Natalie was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. The kind of beautiful that made you want to look away, but you couldn't. She had long dark hair and green eyes and a smile that could mean anything. But it wasn't just her looks. It was the way she talked. Calm. Controlled. Every word of hers was chosen carefully. Dana told me you have a husband problem, she said. Something like that. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Jay and his request. About how he thanked me for being cool. About how he had no idea his cool wife was sitting in a coffee shop interviewing women to ruin his life. Natalie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and crossed her legs. Men like your husband are my favorite kind, she said. They think they're so smart, so charming. They think they can have everything they want without consequences. She tilted her head slightly. I love showing them how wrong they are. I felt a chill run down my spine. The good kind. What happened to you? I asked. Who said anything happened to me? You don't hate men like this without a reason. Natalie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's just say I had a Jay once. He taught me a lot about how men operate, and I've been returning the favor ever since. I believed her. This wasn't a woman who was pretending to be tough. This was a woman who had been through something and came out the other side sharper, colder, ready. I explained the plan. Seduce him at a bar. Make him think he hit the jackpot. Be fun and easy and perfect at first. Let him get comfortable. Let him brag to his wife about his amazing new situation. And then flip the switch. Go crazy. Show up everywhere. Text constantly. Threaten. Cry. Make his life so miserable he can't eat or sleep or think about anything except how to escape. How crazy do you want me to go? Natalie asked. I want him to regret ever meeting you. I want him to wish he had never asked me for permission in the first place. I want him to lose everything. Natalie nodded slowly. I can do that. There's one more thing, I said. When this is all over, I want to be there for the finale. I want him to know I did this. I want to see his face when he realizes his cool wife destroyed his entire life. Natalie smiled again. This time it reached her eyes. I like you, Viola. This is going to be fun. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of Jay. She studied it for a moment. He's cute, she said, in a boring kind of way. Men like this always think they're more interesting than they are. I gave her the address of the bar I knew he'd be at on Friday night around 9. He goes there with his friends every week. Friday it is. She walked out of that coffee shop and every man watched her leave. None of them knew they were looking at a weapon. But Jay was about to find out. I had my weapon loaded and ready. Natalie was gorgeous, manipulative, and couldn't wait to destroy a cheater. Jay was about to walk into that bar Friday thinking he was just some lucky guy about to have fun. He had no idea the woman waiting for him was handpicked by his wife. Friday came faster than I expected. I spent the whole day pretending everything was normal. I made dinner, watched TV with Jay, and laughed at his stupid jokes. And then around 8, he stood up and stretched and said he was going out with the guys. Have fun, I said. He kissed me on the cheek and walked out the door. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Natalie walked into the bar around 9 wearing a red dress that hugged every curve she had. Her heels were high and her hair was down, and she looked like she owned the place. Jay was at his usual table with his friends drinking beer and laughing too loud. He noticed her the second she walked in. Every man in that bar noticed her, but she made eye contact with only one of them. She held Jay's gaze for exactly 3 seconds, and then looked away and walked to the bar. She ordered a martini and crossed her legs on the bar stool and waited. Jay lasted about 4 minutes before he was standing next to her. I don't think I've seen you here before, he said. I would have remembered. Natalie turned to face him and smiled slowly. That's your opening line? You would have remembered? I'm just saying you're not exactly forgettable. And you're not exactly subtle. She took a sip of her drink and looked him up and down. But I'll allow it. Jay grinned and leaned against the bar. I'm Jay. Natalie. Can I buy you another drink, Natalie? You can try to impress me with more than just drinks. Jay laughed and signaled the bartender. All right then. What does impress you? Confidence, honesty, a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go after it. Well, lucky for you, I'm all 3 of those things. Are you now? She raised an eyebrow. Prove it. Jay spent the next hour trying to prove it. He told her about his job and made it sound more important than it was. He talked about his car and his apartment and the trip he took to Miami last year. Natalie listened and nodded and asked all the right questions. She made him feel fascinating. She laughed at his jokes like they were actually funny. She touched his arm when he said something she liked. And every time she touched him, Jay leaned in a little closer. So what do you do? He asked her eventually. I'm in freelance. I like the freedom. Freedom is good. I respect that. Do you? You seem like the type who plays it safe. Me? No way. I take risks all the time. Like what? Jay paused and she could see him trying to come up with something impressive. Like coming over here to talk to you. That was a risk. Was it though? You saw a woman sitting alone and you walked over. That's not a risk. That's just being a man with eyes. Okay, fine. What would you consider a risk? Natalie leaned in close enough that he could smell her perfume. Asking me to get out of here with you. That would be a risk. Jay's eyes went wide. Are you serious? I don't know. Are you brave enough to find out? He stared at her for a long moment and she could see the gears turning in his head. He was calculating the odds and weighing the options and trying to figure out if this was really happening. Let's go, he said. Natalie smiled and grabbed her purse. I thought you'd never ask. They didn't make it to his car before he kissed her. He pushed her against the wall outside the bar and kissed her like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. Natalie kissed him back with equal intensity and ran her fingers through his hair. When they finally pulled apart, Jay was breathing heavy. My place or yours? He asked. Yours is too far. There's a hotel 2 blocks from here. How do you know where I live? I don't. I just know I can't wait that long. They checked into the hotel room and didn't leave until 2 in the morning. Jay drove home with a smile on his face that he couldn't wipe off. He had no idea that Natalie was already texting me every detail. He had no idea that the woman he just slept with was going to ruin his entire life. He thought he had just gotten lucky. He thought he had won the lottery. He walked through our front door humming to himself, and I pretended to be half asleep on the couch. Hey, baby, I said groggily. How was your night? Amazing. The guys were in great form tonight. Yeah? What did you guys do? Oh, you know, darts, drinks, the usual. He was grinning so hard his face looked like it might split in half. Actually, I met a woman tonight. Her name is Natalie. Oh wow, tell me about her. She's incredible, babe. Like genuinely incredible. Smart, funny, and beautiful. Like really, really beautiful. The kind of beautiful that makes other women nervous. She sounds great. She is. And she's into me. Really into me. She couldn't keep her hands off me all night. I kept my face neutral even though I wanted to laugh. That's exciting. It is. I honestly can't believe my luck. Most guys would kill to meet a woman like her, but I was the one that got to show her a good time. You must have made quite an impression. I think I did. She already wants to see me again. I kissed him on the cheek and went upstairs. I could still smell her perfume on him. The perfume I had helped her pick out. The next 2 weeks were a blur of secret meetings and lies. Jay saw Natalie 4 more times, and each time he came home glowing. He started taking more care with his appearance and going to the gym more often. He bought new cologne and got a haircut. He was trying to impress her, and it was working. She texted him constantly, and he texted back within minutes every single time. Look at this, he said one night and shoved his phone in my face. She sent me this just now. It was a photo of Natalie in a black dress standing in front of a mirror. She's getting ready for our date tomorrow. She wanted my opinion on the dress. She looks nice. Nice? She looks like a model, and she's mine. He put his phone away and shook his head in disbelief. I still can't believe this is my life. He continued. Natalie is just different from other women. She doesn't nag or complain or make everything into a big deal. She just wants to have fun. No drama, no expectations. That's great, baby. I'm glad you found someone who makes you happy. And she's wild too, like really wild. The things she does would make you blush. He laughed and took a bite of his toast. I feel like I'm living a double life. Stable, loving wife at home and this crazy, passionate thing on the side. It's literally the best of both worlds. Sounds perfect. It is perfect. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, but it never does. It's like the universe is finally giving me what I deserve. I smiled and squeezed his hand. You do deserve to be happy, Jay. That's all I've ever wanted for you. He looked at me with so much love in his eyes that I almost felt bad for what I was about to do. Almost. You know what I love most about this whole thing? He said. You. The fact that you're okay with all of this. Most wives would lose their minds, but you actually want me to be happy. You're 1 in a million, babe. I hit the jackpot twice. That's sweet of you to say. While Jay was living his fantasy, I was building the case that would end it. I met with my divorce lawyer Ingrid 3 times that month. Her office was cold and clean, and she had the kind of smile that made you glad she was on your side. Show me what you have, she said during our second meeting. I slid a folder across her desk. Inside were screenshots of every text message between Jay and Natalie, photos he had sent her, hotel receipts I had printed from our joint credit card, a timeline of every night he had told me he was with the guys when he was really with her. Ingrid flipped through the pages and her smile got wider with everyone. He used a joint card for the hotel rooms? 3 times, $200 each time. And these texts? He sent all of these? Every single one. Natalie forwarded them to me after each conversation. Your husband is an idiot. I know. Ingrid closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. With this evidence, we can take him for everything. The house, the savings, his retirement fund. He won't have a leg to stand on. That's what I want. I want him to walk away with nothing. Then that's what we'll do. I met with Natalie the same day at a coffee shop across town. She was wearing jeans and a sweater and looked nothing like the woman who had seduced my husband 2 weeks ago. He's completely hooked, she said. He texts me good morning and good night. He talks about taking me on a trip somewhere warm. He's already making plans for the future. Perfect. Let him keep dreaming. When do we move to the next phase? Soon. I need a few more weeks to finalize everything with my lawyer. And then you flip the switch. Natalie stirred her coffee and smiled. I've been looking forward to this part. Just remember what we discussed. We're not just breaking his heart. We're breaking his entire life. I want him to feel what it's like to be trapped. I want him to regret ever asking me for permission to cheat. Natalie raised her coffee cup. To making him regret everything. I clinked my cup against hers. While Jay bragged about his amazing life, I was meeting with my lawyer, finalizing every detail of his destruction. He actually thanked me again for being so understanding. Soon Natalie would flip the switch and show him what happens when you disrespect your wife. He kept calling himself the luckiest man alive. He was about to learn that luck always runs out. Stay tuned for tomorrow's update. After I finalized things with my lawyer, I didn't know when I wanted Natalie to take things up a notch until Jay came home from work. He walked through the door whistling and twirling his keys and grinning like he was God's gift to women everywhere. Something about his stupid face made me want to scream. I hated him. I hated the way he ate and the way he breathed and the way he existed in my space like he deserved to be there. I hated that he got to walk around feeling like the luckiest man alive while I played the role of supportive wife. I was done waiting. I was done being patient. I wanted to watch his perfect little life burn to the ground, and I wanted it to happen now. I excused myself to the bathroom and pulled out my phone. Start tomorrow, I texted Natalie. Go nuclear. She replied with a single word. Finally. The next morning, Jay's phone buzzed once during breakfast, then twice, then 3 times. By the time he finished his coffee, it had buzzed over 20 times. Someone's popular, I said without looking up from my newspaper. Jay stared at his phone with his eyebrows scrunched together. It's Natalie. She's asking why I didn't text her good morning yet. Did you forget? I literally woke up 20 minutes ago. His phone buzzed again, and again, and again. She seems upset, I said. I don't understand. She's never been like this before. He started typing a response and his phone buzzed 6 more times before he could finish. I watched him read each message and watched his face change from confused to concerned to something close to scared. What's she saying? I asked. She wants to know where I am. She wants to know who I'm with. She's asking if I still love her. He looked up at me. We've been seeing each other for 3 weeks. I never said I loved her. Maybe she caught feelings. This is insane. She sent me over 100 texts before I even finished my eggs. His phone started ringing. Natalie's name flashed on the screen. Jay stared at it like it might bite him. Aren't you going to answer? I asked. He let it ring. It stopped. Then it started again immediately. And again. And again. Jay finally answered on the 5th call. Hello? I could hear Natalie's voice through the phone even from across the table. She was crying. Why didn't you answer? Why aren't you texting me back? Are you with someone else? Do you not want me anymore? Natalie, calm down. I just woke up. I was having breakfast. With who? Who are you having breakfast with? Is she there? Is your wife there? Yes, my wife is here. I live with her. We talked about this. I can't do this, Jay. I can't share you. I thought I could, but I can't. I need you. I need all of you. Jay stood up and walked into the other room. I could still hear him trying to calm her down. His voice was soft and patient at first, then frustrated, then desperate. He came back 20 minutes later looking like he had aged 5 years. Everything okay? I asked sweetly. Fine. Everything's fine. It was not fine. Over the next 3 days, Natalie sent Jay over 400 text messages. She called him during meetings. She called him during dinner. She called him at 2 in the morning crying about how she couldn't sleep without hearing his voice. Jay started keeping his phone on silent. Then he started leaving it in his car. Then he started flinching every time it made any sound at all. Maybe you should talk to her, I suggested one night. Set some boundaries. I've tried. She doesn't listen. She just cries and says she can't live without me. That sounds intense. It's a nightmare. I don't know what happened. She was so cool and laid back, and now she's like a completely different person. I reached over and rubbed his shoulder. I'm sorry, baby. That must be really stressful. It is. I think I need to end it. Are you sure? You seemed so happy with her. That was before she lost her mind. He put his head in his hands. How do I even do this? How do I break up with someone who threatens to hurt herself every time I try to leave? Just be honest with her. Tell her it's not working out. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. You just have to do it. Jay nodded slowly. You're right. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll meet her somewhere public and end it clean. He had no idea there was no clean ending to this story. Jay met Natalie at a coffee shop the next afternoon. He chose somewhere public because he thought that would keep things calm. He was wrong. Jay sat down across from her and took a deep breath. We need to talk, he said. Natalie smiled. I know. I've been thinking about us too. I think we should take things to the next level. I want to meet your friends, your family. I want everyone to know about us. That's actually what I wanted to talk about. I think we should slow down. Slow down? Or maybe stop, completely. Natalie's smile disappeared. What are you saying? I'm saying this isn't working for me anymore. You're a great person, but the texting and the calls and the intensity, it's too much. I need some space. Space. She repeated the word like she didn't understand it. You want space from me. I think it's for the best. Natalie was quiet for a long moment. Then she started laughing. Not a happy laugh. A broken laugh. The kind of laugh that makes everyone in a coffee shop turn and stare. You think you can just throw me away? She said. After everything we shared? After everything you promised me? I never promised you anything. You told me I was special. You told me you'd never met anyone like me. You told me you were falling for me. I was caught up in the moment. I didn't mean... You didn't mean it? Her voice was getting louder. You didn't mean it? Natalie, please keep your voice down. Don't tell me to keep my voice down. Don't you dare tell me to keep my voice down. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. You used me. You made me fall in love with you and now you want to throw me away like garbage. That's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing, Jay? Explain it to me. Make me understand why the man who couldn't keep his hands off me 2 weeks ago suddenly wants space. Jay looked around the coffee shop. Everyone was watching. His face was bright red. Can we please talk about this somewhere private? No. We can talk about it right here. Right now. In front of everyone. She grabbed his arm. You don't get to do this to me. You don't get to make me love you and then disappear. I won't let you. Natalie, let go of me. No. Let go of me right now. Or what? She was screaming now. Full volume. Tears streaming down her face. What are you going to do, Jay? Hit me? Call the cops? Go ahead. Tell them your side of the story. Tell them how you seduced me and used me and threw me away when you got bored. Jay yanked his arm free and practically ran out of the coffee shop. Natalie stood there watching him go with mascara running down her cheeks. Then she turned to the crowd that had gathered and smiled through her tears. Don't worry, everyone. He'll come back. They always come back. He did not come back, but Natalie came to him. She showed up at his office the next day. Jay was in a meeting with his boss and 3 coworkers when the receptionist knocked on the conference room door. There's a woman here to see you, she said to Jay. She says it's urgent. Jay's face went pale. Tell her I'm busy. I tried. She won't leave. She's making a scene in the lobby. Jay excused himself and walked to the front of the building. Natalie was standing by the reception desk holding a bouquet of flowers and a teddy bear. Surprise, baby, she said when she saw him. I wanted to apologize for yesterday. I brought you presents. You can't be here, Jay whispered. This is my job. I know. I wanted your coworkers to see how much I love you. She held up the flowers. These are your favorite, right? Yellow roses? I don't have a favorite flower. Please leave. Not until you forgive me. Not until you take me back. Natalie, I'm not taking you back. It's over. Please just go. Her face twisted into something ugly. You're really doing this? Here? In front of everyone? You're the one who showed up at my job. Because you won't answer my calls. Because you blocked my number. Because you're trying to pretend I don't exist. She threw the flowers on the ground. But I do exist, Jay. And I'm not going anywhere. She turned to the receptionist. Did you know your coworker is a liar and a cheater? Did you know he promised to leave his wife for me and then changed his mind? Jay grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. That's not true. None of that is true. Don't touch me. She yanked away from him. Don't you ever touch me again. She stormed out of the building and Jay stood there trying to catch his breath. His boss appeared behind him. What the hell was that? His boss asked. Nothing, just a misunderstanding. That didn't look like nothing. That looked like a lawsuit waiting to happen. It won't happen again, I promise. But it did happen again, and again, and again. Natalie showed up at Jay's gym the next morning. She told everyone in the locker room that they were engaged. She showed up at his favorite restaurant and cried to the waitress about how he had broken her heart. She found his friends on social media and messaged every single one of them with photos of them together. She posted videos on her Instagram of herself crying and talking about how the love of her life had abandoned her. She didn't use his name, but she tagged the location of his office and his gym, and even our neighborhood. People started recognizing him. Strangers would stop him on the street and ask if he was the guy from those videos. His coworkers whispered behind his back. His gym buddies avoided eye contact. His whole life became a circus, and he was the clown at the center of it. One night he came home and his car was destroyed. Someone had keyed the word liar into the driver's side door and slashed all 4 tires. Jay stood in the driveway staring at the damage with his mouth hanging open. Oh my God, I said when I came outside. What happened? Natalie. Natalie happened. How do you know it was her? Who else would it be? He kicked the flat tire and yelled at the sky. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Did you call the police? And tell them what? That my side piece went crazy and destroyed my car? He scoffed. I'm trapped. I'm completely trapped. I rubbed his back and made sympathetic noises. I'm so sorry, baby. This must be so hard for you. You have no idea. Is there anything I can do to help? He looked at me with exhaustion in his eyes. Just be patient with me. I know I haven't been myself lately. This whole situation is just... He couldn't even finish the sentence. Take all the time you need, I said. I'm not going anywhere. That night, I made him his favorite dinner and poured him a glass of wine and asked him sweetly over dessert why he didn't see his girlfriend anymore. She really seems to miss you, baby. All those texts and calls. She must really care about you. Jay's fork froze halfway to his mouth. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying she's clearly very passionate about your relationship. There is no relationship. She's insane. She's ruining my life. But you liked her so much before. What changed? He stared at me like he was trying to figure out if I was being serious. Everything changed. She changed. She went from cool and fun to completely psychotic overnight. That must be so confusing for you. It is. It really is. I reached across the table and held his hand. Well, I'm here for you. Whatever you need. We'll get through this together. He squeezed my hand back and thanked me for being so understanding. He had no idea that every text Natalie sent him, she sent me first for approval. He had no idea that every scene she caused was choreographed down to the last tear. He had no idea that the woman comforting him at dinner was the same woman who had planned his complete destruction. I told Natalie it was time for the final phase. We were going to humiliate Jay in front of everyone he loved. He was begging me for help, not knowing I built this nightmare around him with my own hands. His parents' dinner party would be the last time he ever felt like a respected man in that family. Jay wanted freedom from our boring marriage so badly. I was about to give him more freedom than he could ever handle. I told Natalie it was time for the final phase. Jay's parents hosted a dinner party every year on the first Saturday of October. They invited the whole family plus a few close friends. His mother cooked for 3 days straight. His father set up the backyard with string lights and rented tables. It was their thing, their tradition. The one night a year when everyone came together and pretended to like each other. I had been going to these dinners for 5 years. I knew exactly where the house was. I knew exactly when everyone would arrive. I knew exactly how to make sure Natalie had all the information she needed. 3 days before the party, I met Natalie at our usual coffee shop. I slid a piece of paper across the table with the address written on it. Saturday night, I said. Everyone will be there by 7. His parents, his brother, his aunts and uncles and cousins. About 30 people total. Natalie picked up the paper and smiled. The whole family. The whole family. And they have no idea what's coming. When should I arrive? 8:30. Give everyone time to eat and drink and get comfortable. Let them think the night is going perfectly, and then you walk in and burn it all down. Natalie tucked the paper into her purse. What's the play? Pregnant girlfriend who was promised a future. He told you he was leaving his wife. He told you he loved you. He told you the baby would change everything. And then he ghosted you. And you? I'll be the shocked wife who had no idea any of this was happening. At least until the very end. Natalie raised an eyebrow. You're going to reveal yourself? That's the whole point. I want him to know. I want him to look at me and realize that the cool wife he thought he had been playing this whole time was actually playing him. That's cold. He deserves cold. Natalie smiled and finished her coffee. Saturday at 8:30. I'll be there. She walked out and I sat there for another hour imagining the look on Jay's face when his world came crashing down. Saturday came and Jay spent the whole morning getting ready. He ironed his best shirt and polished his shoes and practiced his smile in the mirror. He had no idea this would be the last family dinner he would ever be welcome at. We drove to his parents' house together. His hand was on my knee the whole way, and he kept talking about how nice it was going to be. How he had been stressed lately and he needed this. How being around family always reminded him what was important. I nodded and smiled and counted down the hours. The party was exactly what I expected. His mother had made enough food to feed an army. His father was already 3 beers deep and telling the same stories he told every year. His brother Anton was showing off pictures of his new boat. His aunts were gossiping in the corner and his cousins were playing cards at the kids' table even though most of them were in their 20s. Jay worked the room like a politician. He shook hands and kissed cheeks and laughed at jokes that weren't funny. He was charming and likable and everyone adored him. I stood by the punch bowl and watched him perform. I wondered how many of these people would still adore him in 2 hours. By 8 o'clock, everyone had eaten and the energy in the room was warm and relaxed. Jay's mother was bringing out dessert. His father was setting up the projector for his annual slideshow of family photos. Jay was sitting on the couch between his brother and his uncle telling some story about a client at work. He looked happy. Genuinely happy. Like he had forgotten all about Natalie and the chaos of the past few weeks. Like he thought the storm had passed and he was safe now. I checked my phone. 8:27. 3 more minutes. I excused myself to use the bathroom and locked myself in. I stared at my reflection in the mirror and took a deep breath. This was it. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of giving everything I had to a man who asked me for permission to cheat. 5 years that ended with him thanking me for being cool while he planned to use me as a safety net. I heard the doorbell ring at exactly 8:30. Natalie was nothing if not punctual. I came out of the bathroom just in time to see Jay's mother open the front door. Natalie stood on the porch in a tight black dress that showed off a small but visible baby bump. She had a pillow stuffed under there. We had practiced it together. She looked stunning and devastated and absolutely unhinged all at the same time. Can I help you? Jay's mother asked. Hi, Mrs. Wallace. I'm Natalie. I'm here to see Jay. The room went quiet. Every head turned toward the door. Jay's face went white. Natalie, he said. His voice cracked on her name. What are you doing here? I needed to see you, baby. You haven't been returning my calls. She pushed past his mother and walked into the living room. Her eyes scanned the crowd and landed on me. Oh, your wife is here. Hi, Viola. I've heard so much about you. I played my part perfectly. Who is this Jay? Nobody. She's nobody. Natalie, you need to leave right now. Nobody? Natalie's voice broke. I'm nobody? After everything we shared? After everything you promised me? Jay's father stood up from his chair. Son, what is going on here? Dad, it's nothing. She's just some crazy woman who's been stalking me. I'm calling the police. Stalking you? Natalie laughed bitterly. Is that what you're calling it now? Because that's not what you called it when you were sneaking out of your house to meet me at hotels. That's not what you called it when you told me you loved me. When you told me you were going to leave your wife for me. Jay's mother put her hand over her heart. Jay, is this true? No, absolutely not. She's lying. She's insane. I have proof, Natalie said. She pulled out her phone and held it up. I have every text message, every photo, every voicemail you left me at 2 a.m. telling me how much you missed me. She started reading out loud. I can't stop thinking about you. My wife has no idea. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I wish I had met you first. Jay lunged for the phone, but his brother grabbed him and held him back. Let her talk, Anton said. His voice was cold. I want to hear this. Anton, please. She's making this up. Then why do you look like you're about to pass out? Natalie continued reading. I'm going to leave her soon. I just need time. We'll be together. I promise. You and me and our baby. Jay's aunt gasped. Baby? What baby? Natalie put her hand on her stomach. The fake bump pressed against her dress. I'm pregnant, she said. 9 weeks. Jay is the father. He told me he was going to leave his wife and raise this baby with me. But then he stopped returning my calls. He blocked my number. He pretended like I didn't exist. The room exploded. Jay's mother started crying. His father was yelling about how he didn't raise his son to be a cheater. His aunts were whispering furiously to each other. His cousins had abandoned their card game and were filming everything on their phones. This isn't happening, Jay kept saying. This isn't happening. She's lying. She's crazy. Someone please believe me. I believe you, his uncle said. Like I believed your brother when he said the same thing about his first wife. Like I believed your father when he said the same thing about the secretary. You Wallace men are all the same. You can't keep your pants zipped and then you blame the women for being crazy. Uncle Dario, this is different. It's not different. It's never different. Natalie was still standing in the middle of the room with tears streaming down her face. I gave you everything, she said to Jay. I believed every word you said. And you threw me away like garbage. You threw our baby away like garbage. There is no baby, Jay shouted. You're not pregnant. This is all fake. You're doing this to ruin my life. Why would I ruin my own life just to hurt you? I'm pregnant, Jay. I took 3 tests. I went to the doctor. This is real. This is happening. And you need to take responsibility. Jay's mother stepped forward. Her face was wet with tears and her hands were shaking. Is this true, Jay? Did you cheat on Viola? Did you get this woman pregnant? Mom, please. You know me. You know I would never. I don't know anything anymore. I don't know who you are. The son I raised would never do something like this. I'm the same person I've always been. No. The son I raised had integrity. The son I raised respected his wife. The son I raised would look me in the eye and tell me the truth. She grabbed his face with both hands. Look at me, Jay. Look at me and tell me the truth. Did you cheat on Viola? Jay's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His silence was louder than any confession. His mother dropped her hands and stepped back. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, it's true. Mom, don't. She held up her hand. Don't say another word to me. I can't even look at you right now. She walked out of the room and his father followed her. I could hear her sobbing in the kitchen. Jay stood there with his whole family staring at him like he was a stranger. His brother wouldn't look at him. His aunts were shaking their heads in disgust. His cousins were still filming. And Natalie was standing in the middle of it all with her hand on her fake baby bump and tears running down her face. I trusted you, she said quietly. I trusted you and you destroyed me. Natalie, please, just stop. Please, just stop. I can't stop. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop loving you. Even after everything you did to me, I still love you. What does that say about me? What kind of pathetic person falls in love with a married man and then begs him to love her back? She turned to face me. And you. Poor Viola. You had no idea, did you? You had no idea your husband was sneaking around behind your back, making plans with another woman, telling her he was going to leave you. You trusted him and he betrayed you. Just like he betrayed me. I let myself cry. Real tears. Not because I was sad, but because this was the moment I had been waiting for. I didn't know, I said. My voice was small and broken. I didn't know about any of this. Of course you didn't. Men like Jay are good at hiding things. They're good at lying and manipulating and making you feel like you're the crazy one. But you're not crazy, Viola. I'm not crazy. He's the one who did this. He's the one who destroyed both of us. Jay grabbed Natalie's arm. Stop it. Stop talking to her. Stop talking to anyone. You've done enough damage. Let go of me. Not until you admit you're lying. Not until you tell everyone the truth. I am telling the truth. Everything I said is true. You cheated on your wife. You got me pregnant. You promised me a future and then you disappeared. The baby isn't real. I know it isn't real. You're wearing a pillow under your dress. Natalie slapped him so hard the sound echoed through the room. How dare you, she screamed. How dare you accuse me of faking a pregnancy? What kind of monster do you think I am? The kind of monster who shows up at a family dinner to ruin my life. You ruined your own life, Jay. You ruined it the moment you decided to cheat on your wife. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. The room was chaos. Everyone was yelling. Jay's father came back from the kitchen shouting about how Jay had disgraced the family. And Jay was standing in the middle of it all looking like his whole world had collapsed around him. Because it had. Viola, he said. He turned to me with desperation in his eyes. Viola, please. You have to believe me. This isn't what it looks like. She's crazy. She's been stalking me for weeks. Please, baby. Please say something. I looked at him for a long moment. At this man I had married 5 years ago. At this man who had asked me for permission to cheat while we were watching TV. At this man who had no idea that the cool wife he thought he had been playing this whole time was actually playing him. I have something to say, I said. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. Natalie, Jay, his parents, his brother, his aunts and uncles and cousins. 30 pairs of eyes waiting to hear what the betrayed wife had to say. I smiled. I planned the whole thing. The silence that followed was deafening. Jay blinked at me. What? Natalie isn't crazy. She isn't a stalker. She isn't pregnant. She's an actress. I hired her to seduce you and destroy your life. Jay's face went through about 15 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, horror, rage, more confusion. That's not possible. It's very possible. Remember that night you came home from the bar telling me about the incredible woman you met? The one who was smart and funny and beautiful? The one you couldn't believe was into you? I walked toward him slowly. I sent her. I told her what bar you'd be at. I told her what time you'd be there. I told her exactly what to say to make you fall for her. No. Yes. Every text she sent you? I approved it first. Every scene she caused at your job and your gym and your favorite restaurant? Planned. Every tear she cried? Fake. The pregnancy? A pillow. The whole thing was fake, Jay. Except for one part. I stopped right in front of him. Close enough to see the sweat on his forehead. Close enough to smell the fear coming off him in waves. The part where you cheated on your wife was real. The part where you used a joint credit card to pay for hotel rooms was real. The part where you bragged to me about how lucky you were to have a cool wife and an amazing girlfriend at the same time? That was very real. And that's the part my divorce lawyer is going to use to take everything you own. Jay's mother had stopped crying. His father had stopped yelling. The whole room was frozen. You did this, Jay whispered. You did all of this. You did this. You asked me for permission to cheat, Jay. You looked me in the eye and told me you wanted to sleep with other women. You thought I was going to sit at home like a good little wife while you had your fun. I shook my head. You married the wrong woman. I don't get sad. I get even. Natalie walked over and stood next to me. She dropped the broken girlfriend act and smiled at Jay with complete satisfaction. It was nice meeting you, Jay. You were even easier to fool than we thought you'd be. She walked out the front door without looking back. Jay stood there with his mouth hanging open and his family staring at him. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. His mother finally broke the silence. Viola, she said. Her voice was strange, not angry, almost impressed. Did you really do all of that? Every single bit of it. Why? Because he deserved it. And because I wanted him to know what it feels like to be played by someone you trust. If they expected me to feel sad or apologize, they were crazy. I picked up my purse from the couch and walked toward the door. I stopped and turned back one last time. The divorce papers will be ready on Monday. I'm taking the house, the car, half of everything you have. And based on what just happened here tonight, I don't think anyone in your family is going to fight me on it. I looked at his parents, his brother, his aunts and uncles. Every single one of them looked at Jay with disgust. Not one of them moved to defend him. Goodbye, Jay. Thanks for asking me for an open marriage. It was the best thing you ever did for me. I walked out of that house and into the cool October air. Behind me, I could hear Jay screaming my name. But I just got in my car and drove away.